Commander Vexthor stood at the viewing port of the Zarn-K flagship, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. The stars looked cold and distant from here, much like the gentle worlds that made up most of the galactic concord. He flicked his tongue, tasting the specially calibrated air that mimicked his homeworld of Scarus Prime. Most species found it choking and harsh. To him, it was comforting. "Commander, the Council representatives have arrived," said Lieutenant Drex, his aide. "They request your presence in the meeting chamber." Vexthor nodded, his amber eyes narrowing. "Another day teaching soft-worlders how to survive," he muttered. The halls of the flagship were built to Zarn-Kai proportions, high ceilings, warm temperatures, and higher gravity than most species could tolerate. As he walked, smaller alien diplomats hurried out of his way, their eyes filled with a mixture of respect and fear. He was used to it. His species had evolved on the harshest known planet in the Concord. Massive predators, toxic plants, extreme weather, and crushing gravity had shaped the Zarn-Kai into natural warriors. The meeting room fell silent as he entered. 6 different species sat around the table, each one adapted to peaceful, gentle worlds. His scales gleamed under the lights as he took his seat at the head of the table. "The Void Swarm has destroyed 3 more outer systems," he said without greeting. "Your worlds will be next if we don't strengthen our defenses." A blue-skinned diplomat from Aqualon cleared his throat. "Commander, with all due respect, your defensive proposals require resources that would strain our economies. Surely there are less aggressive options." Vexthor fought the urge to slam his clawed hand on the table. "The swarm doesn't negotiate. It consumes. Only the strong survive." He leaned forward. "You invited my people into your concord because you needed protectors. Now you question our methods." The room grew uncomfortably quiet. They knew he was right. The Zarn-K were the only species tough enough to fight on the front lines. The others were too fragile, too specialized for their peaceful home environments. "We will review your proposals," said the Aqualon diplomat finally. "But please remember that not all of us evolved to fight." "Clearly," Vexthor replied, rising to his full height. Meeting adjourned. Thousands of light years away, Lieutenant Jason Grant watched Earth grow smaller through the viewport of the U.S. Discovery. Its blue-green surface, the only home humanity had ever known, was already the size of a marble. "Final system checks complete, Lieutenant," said Zoe Parker from her communication station. "All systems nominal." Jason nodded. "Thanks, Zoe. Dr. Winters, how's our experimental drive looking?" Olivia Winters looked up from her science station. "The warp calculations are stable. If everything goes according to plan, we'll be the first humans to travel beyond our solar system." "If being the key word," said Mason Rivera, the ship's security chief. His strong arms were crossed over his chest as he stared at the stars ahead. "No one's ever tested this drive outside of simulations." Jason smiled. "That's why they sent us, Mason. Humanity didn't get to space by playing it safe." The bridge of the Discovery was compact and efficient. Earth's limited resources meant every cubic inch had to serve a purpose. The 4 officers were the best Earth had to offer, veterans of asteroid mining operations, orbital construction, and the Mars colonies. "Control, this is Discovery," Jason said into the comm. "We are go for warp initiation." "Roger that, Discovery," came the reply. "You are cleared for warp. Make history out there." Jason looked at his crew. Mason's face was stern but ready. Olivia's eyes sparkled with scientific curiosity. Zoe gave him a confident nod. "Initiating warp drive in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars outside stretched into lines of light. The ship hummed with energy as space itself bent around them. Then everything went wrong. Warning lights flashed across every console. The ship shuddered violently. "Power surge in the warp core," Olivia shouted. "The field is collapsing." "Brace for." Jason didn't finish his sentence. A blinding flash of light engulfed the bridge. The Discovery vanished from Earth's sensors, leaving only confused silence behind. When Jason opened his eyes again, the view screen showed unfamiliar stars. Earth's sun was nowhere to be seen. "Status report," he managed, helping Zoe back into her chair. Olivia was already scanning. "Lieutenant, we're not just outside our solar system." Her voice trembled slightly. "According to these readings, we're over 6,000 light-years from Earth." Mason pointed to the view screen. "And we're not alone." In the distance, a massive ship with a design like nothing they'd ever seen was changing course, heading straight for them. Captain Scarvex of the patrol vessel Fang of Scaris watched the strange ship on his view screen. His forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air and thought. He had never seen a design like this before. "Unknown vessel detected near border sector 12, reported his sensor officer. "No match in the Concord database." Scarvex straightened his armored uniform. As the younger sibling of Commander Vexthor, he had much to prove. "Scan for life signs." "Scanning. Unusual readings, Captain. Carbon-based life forms that their vital signs suggest." The officer paused, adjusting his instruments. "This can't be right. The atmospheric mixture they're breathing would be toxic to most species." This caught Scarvex's attention. Very few species could survive in harsh conditions. Perhaps they had found potential allies or rivals. "Open communications," he ordered. "And ready weapons, just in case." Aboard the Discovery, alarms had finally stopped blaring. The crew worked quickly to assess their situation. "Ship approaching," Zoe reported from her station. "They're scanning us, and now they're hailing us." Jason took a deep breath. Humanity's first contact with alien life was about to happen, and it was entirely by accident. On screen, the view screen flickered, then showed the bridge of the alien vessel. Jason and his crew stared in shock at the reptilian being in the center. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with amber eyes and greenish-gray scales covering its body. Sharp teeth gleamed as it spoke. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Scarvex of the Galactic Concord patrol ship Fang of Scaris. Identify yourselves and state your purpose in this sector." Zoe whispered, "The translator is working." "That's incredible." Jason stood up straight. "This is Lieutenant Jason Grant of the Earth vessel Discovery. We are on a peaceful exploration mission and arrived here by accident. Our warp drive malfunctioned." There was a pause as the reptilian captain seemed to consider this. "Earth. This world is not in our records. We're new to interstellar travel," Jason explained. "This is our first journey beyond our solar system." Scarvex's eyes narrowed. "You claim this is your first journey, yet you appear thousands of light years from your home. That seems unlikely." Olivia stepped forward. "Our experimental drive was only supposed to take us a few light years. The malfunction sent us much farther than intended." The alien captain studied them for a long moment. "We will verify your claims. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." The screen went dark. "Boarded." Mason moved toward the weapons locker. "I don't like the sound of that." "Stand down," Jason ordered. "We're in no position to fight. Let's show them we're peaceful." 20 minutes later, the airlock hissed open. 3 Zarn-Kai soldiers entered, wearing what looked like light armor. They carried devices that were clearly scanners, and weapons at their sides. The tallest one, clearly the leader, stopped suddenly. He adjusted something on his wrist, then looked at his device again with obvious confusion. "Is something wrong?" Jason asked, stepping forward with his hands open to show he was unarmed. "Your atmosphere." The Zarn-Kai soldier seemed stunned. "You breathe this naturally." 21% oxygen. "With this nitrogen mix." "Yes," Olivia replied. "It's standard for our planet." The soldiers exchanged glances. The leader tapped a communication device. "Captain, request permission to bring the aliens aboard our vessel. You need to see this yourself." An hour later, Jason and Olivia stood in the meeting room of the Fang of Scaris. The gravity was noticeably stronger than Earth's, making movement more difficult. The air was thinner, with less oxygen and more carbon dioxide. It wasn't dangerous for humans, but it was uncomfortable. "You seem affected by our environment," Captain Scarvex noted, watching them carefully. "Yet you adapt. Interesting." "We can manage," Jason said, trying not to show how heavy his limbs felt. "Your ship is impressive." Scarvex leaned forward. "Tell me about this Earth. What are the conditions there?" As Olivia described Earth's gravity, atmosphere, temperature ranges, and wildlife, the Zarnk's expression changed from skepticism to astonishment. "That's impossible," he finally said. "No habitable world has such extreme conditions. You're describing a death world even harsher than Scarus Prime." "A what?" Jason asked. "A death world." Scarvex's voice had dropped to almost a whisper. "Until now, my people believed we were the only ones." Nexus Station hung in space like a massive spinning wheel. Hundreds of ships from across the Galactic Concord docked along its outer ring. The Discovery looked tiny next to the giant alien vessels. Jason stared out the viewport as they approached. "I never imagined anything this big could be built in space." According to Captain Scarvex, this station hosts representatives from over 30 different species, Olivia said, checking the data pad they had been given. Mason frowned. "And they all think we're dangerous just because of where we come from. Can you blame them?" Zoe asked. "We just learned that most habitable planets in the galaxy are paradise worlds with mild climates and few predators. Earth is apparently an extreme exception." The docking procedure went smoothly. When the airlock opened, a delegation waited for them. Captain Scarvex stood at the front, with several smaller aliens behind him. These new aliens had smooth blue skin, large eyes, and delicate limbs. "Lieutenant Grant," Scarvex greeted them. "These are representatives from the Concord Council. They are eager to meet you." Jason noticed how the blue aliens kept their distance. One of them whispered something to another, who shrank back slightly. "Are they afraid of us?" Jason whispered to Scarvex. The reptilian captain made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Of course they are. You're Deathworlders, like us. But even we find your planet's conditions extreme." As they walked through the station, Jason noticed something strange. Wherever they went, alien residents moved aside, creating a wide path. Some stared openly. Others hurried away. "The news of your arrival has spread quickly," Scarvex explained. "Many have never seen humans before. They're treating us like we might attack them," Mason said quietly. "In their experience, species from harsh worlds tend to be physically imposing," Scarvex replied. "Until now, only the Zarnk carried that distinction." They entered a large chamber with a circular table. Various aliens sat around it, each one different from the next. At the head of the table sat a Zarnkai larger and more decorated than Scarvex. "Commander Vexthor," Scarvex said with a slight bow. "I present the humans from Earth." The commander rose to his full height, towering over everyone. "So these are the creatures who claim to come from a death world even harsher than Scarus Prime." His tone made it clear he didn't believe it. "We make no claims about the ranking of planets," Jason said. "We simply described our home." Vexthor circled the humans, studying them. "You look soft. No natural armor. No claws. No enhanced muscle structure that I can see." He stopped in front of Mason, who stood his ground despite the intimidating presence. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." "What kind of demonstration?" Mason asked. "A simple physical test, to verify your claims." Vexthor's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Unless you're afraid." Mason glanced at Jason, who nodded slightly. "I'm not afraid," Mason said. 30 minutes later, they stood in a large training room. A circle was marked on the floor, with various obstacles and weights around it. "The challenge is simple," Vexthor explained. "A series of physical tests, followed by light combat training. Nothing lethal, just informative." The tests began with lifting. The weights were much heavier than they appeared due to the station's artificial gravity being set to Zarnkai standards. Mason struggled but managed to lift objects that the watching aliens clearly expected would be impossible for him. Next came an agility course. While the Zarnke moved with power and precision, Mason showed a flexibility they lacked. He could squeeze through spaces that Vexthor had to go around. Finally, they faced each other in the circle. Vexthor was stronger, but Mason was quicker. Neither could gain a clear advantage. After several minutes, Vexthor called a stop. "Enough," he said, breathing heavily. "Interesting. You compensate for your weaknesses in unexpected ways." Meanwhile, Olivia had been granted access to the station's biological database. What she found shocked her. "Jason," she whispered when they regrouped. "According to their records, human biology should be impossible. Our ability to adapt to different environments, our endurance, even our omnivorous diet, they consider these traits evolutionary contradictions." Jason looked around at the aliens watching them. "So we're not just from a death world. We're evolutionary oddities too. And that's why they're afraid," Zoe added. "We break all their rules just by existing." Captain Scarvex approached them. "The High Council wishes to speak with you." Immediately. His tone suggested this wasn't good news. The High Council chamber was a large circular room with rising tiers of seats. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled these seats, their quiet whispers creating a constant background hum. At the center stood a raised platform where Jason and his crew now waited. "This is not a formal trial," said a tall, willowy alien with silver skin. "But the Council has concerns about your species that must be addressed." Jason nodded. "We understand. We're happy to answer your questions." The silver alien, who had introduced himself as first speaker Ilum, continued. "Our scans of your vessel and preliminary analysis of your biology suggest that your species evolved in conditions that would kill most sentient life in the galaxy." "That is correct," Olivia confirmed, "though we didn't realize this was unusual until now." A different council member, one with multiple eyes and blue-green scales, leaned forward. "The Zarnke have been the only Deathworld species in the Concord for centuries. They serve as our protectors. What role do you humans envision for yourselves?" Before Jason could answer, a harsh voice cut in. "That is the wrong question." A Zarnke military officer rose from his seat. "We should be asking what threat they pose." Vexthor, who stood to the side, made a disapproving sound. "General Kraz, they have shown no hostile intent." "Yet," Kraz replied, "but history shows that Deathworlders always seek to dominate. It is in our nature. And these humans come from a world even harsher than ours. What's more, their adaptability makes them potentially more dangerous than any species we've encountered." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jason could see fear growing on many alien faces. "We're explorers, not conquerors," Jason said firmly. "Earth has had its share of conflicts, but we've moved beyond that. We came here by accident, and we only wish to establish peaceful contact." General Kraz laughed. "Pretty words, but can we risk believing them?" "I believe we must," Vexthor countered, "especially with the Void Swarm growing stronger. If humans are as adaptable as they seem, they could be valuable allies." The mention of the Void Swarm caused a stir in the chamber. "What's the Void Swarm?" Mason asked quietly. First speaker Ilum looked grave. "A destructive entity that has been consuming entire star systems at the edge of our territory. It adapts to every weapon we use against it. Even the Zarnke have struggled to contain it." As the council debated, Zoe nudged Jason and whispered, "Something's wrong. I've been monitoring their communication channels. There's encrypted traffic between General Kraz and several Zarnke ships." Jason frowned. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it," she murmured, her fingers moving over her small data pad. The debate continued for another hour. Some council members suggested establishing diplomatic relations with Earth. Others wanted to study humans further before making any decisions. General Kraz and his supporters pushed for more extreme measures, arguing that humans posed too great a risk. Finally, First Speaker Elam raised his hands for silence. We will take time to consider all perspectives. In the meantime, the humans will remain as honored guests on Nexus Station. Commander Vexthor will ensure their safety. As they left the chamber, Vexthor approached Jason. That went better than I expected. Many fear what they don't understand, including some of your own people, Jason observed. Vexthor's expression darkened. General Kraz has always been extreme in his views. He believes that only the strong deserve to survive. Back in their assigned quarters, Zoe finally broke the encryption. Her face paled as she read the messages. Jason, we have a problem, she said. Kraz isn't just talking about containing us. He's ordered his ships to prepare for an attack on our vessel. They're planning to destroy the Discovery and any evidence that humans exist. But why? Olivia asked. We're no threat to them. They think we are, Mason said grimly. Or rather, they think what we represent is a threat, a species that might be stronger than the Zarnkai. There's more, Zoe continued. They've already extracted our warp drive data. They're calculating the location of Earth. Jason's blood ran cold. We need to warn our people. And we need to secure the Discovery. How? Mason asked. We're outnumbered and surrounded. Before Jason could answer, an alarm blared throughout the station. The room's communication panel lit up with Vexthor's face. Humans, he said urgently. The Void Swarm has been detected approaching Nexus Station. All defense personnel are being mobilized. He paused. Including you, if you're willing to fight. The command center of Nexus Station was in chaos. Screens showed a dark mass approaching. The Void Swarm. It looked like a black cloud in space, but closer views revealed millions of small organisms moving as one. It's bigger than the last attack, Vexthor said grimly as Jason and his crew entered. And most of our fleet is deployed elsewhere. Jason studied the tactical displays. What are your defense capabilities? We have station-based weapons and a small defense fleet, Vexthor replied. But the swarm adapts quickly. Whatever works once rarely works again. General Kraz sneered when he saw the humans. This is not your fight. Return to your quarters. Actually, Vexthor countered, I've granted them temporary military status. Lieutenant Grant has combat experience, and we need every skilled officer. Kraz looked like he wanted to argue but was interrupted by an alarm. Swarm accelerating. Impact in 15 minutes. Jason turned to his crew. Olivia, work with their science team. Study everything they know about the swarm's biology. Mason, coordinate with security. Zoe, monitor all communications. We need to know if any swarm elements try to access their networks. Vexthor raised an eye ridge, impressed by Jason's quick organization. You've handled crises before. Earth has had its share of disasters, Jason replied, then pointed to the display. Your defense ships are in a standard formation. The swarm will expect that. What do you suggest? Vexthor asked. Unpredictability. Random patterns. If they adapt to patterns, then don't give them any. Vexthor considered this, then nodded. Implementation orders. Now. The defense fleet broke formation, regrouping into seemingly chaotic positions. When the swarm attacked, it spread thin, trying to engage all targets at once. It's working, shouted a Zarnke officer. But the victory was short-lived. The swarm quickly adapted, splitting into smaller units that targeted individual ships. 3 ships lost already, Kraz reported. The swarm is penetrating our outer defenses. Olivia rushed over to Jason. I've analyzed their data. The swarm isn't just adapting, it's learning. It targets specific ship systems in sequence, communications, engines, weapons, life support. Like it knows ship design, Jason mused. That's not random evolution. That's intelligence. Meanwhile, Mason had joined a Zarnkai security team preparing to repel boarders if the swarm breached the station. He was surprised to see the Zarnkai checking their armor for gaffes. The smaller swarm organisms can slip through even tiny openings, explained a Zarn-K soldier. Mason thought about this. So they're vulnerable to being sealed out. What about extreme temperatures or pressures? Yes, but our weapons already use heat. They've adapted. What about cold? Extreme cold? Mason asked. The Zarn-K looked confused. We haven't tried that approach. Mason contacted Jason immediately. I have an idea. In the command center, Vexthor's flagship announced it was under attack. The main view showed swarm organisms attaching to its hull. The flagship's defenses are failing, Kraz announced, almost pleased. Commander, you must abandon your ship. No, Vexthor growled. Too many of my people are still aboard. Jason looked at Olivia, who had just finished reviewing Mason's idea. She nodded. Commander, we can help, Jason said. The Discovery has industrial cooling equipment for our warp drive. If we can get close enough to your flagship, we might be able to freeze the swarm organisms attacking it. That's suicide, Kraz objected. The Discovery would be swarmed immediately. Not if we have proper escort, Jason countered. And we're smaller and more maneuverable than your ships. Vexthor studied Jason for a moment. You would risk your only way home to save my crew. We would, Jason confirmed. That's what allies do. Minutes later, the Discovery launched with Jason at the helm. Mason had rigged the cooling systems to vent externally. Zoe monitored the swarm's movements, while Olivia calculated the freezing patterns needed. 2 Zarn-Kai fighters escorted them, blasting swarm organisms that came too close. The Discovery raced toward the failing flagship. Getting heavy resistance, Jason reported as the ship shuddered. Swarm organisms attempting to attach to our hull. 30 seconds to optimal position. Olivia counted down. The swarm seemed to sense their plan. More organisms redirected toward the small human ship. They're targeting us specifically, Zoe realized. Like they know we're the threat. Hold course, Jason ordered as warning lights flashed across his console. Almost there. The Discovery reached position alongside the massive Zarn-K flagship. Swarm organisms covered both ships now. Activating freeze protocol now, Olivia shouted. A cloud of supercooled gas erupted from the Discovery, engulfing both vessels. The swarm organisms, caught in the extreme cold, froze instantly and shattered. On Nexus Station, even General Kraz watched in shock as the small human ship succeeded where Zarn-K weaponry had failed. Impossible, he whispered. The aftermath of the battle left Nexus Station damaged but intact. The Discovery had suffered too. Its hull was scared from swarm attacks, and the warp drive was offline again. In the main repair bay, Jason watched as both human and Zarn-K engineers worked together on the ships. It was strange how quickly things had changed. Just days ago, they were strangers. Now they worked side by side. Your ship saved hundreds of lives, Commander Vexthor said, approaching Jason. Including mine. We did what anyone would do, Jason replied. No, Vexthor shook his head. Most species in the Concord would have hidden. Self-preservation is their first instinct. He looked at the human with new respect. But you risked everything for people you barely know. Across the bay, Olivia was deep in conversation with Zarn-K scientists. They gathered around displays showing the frozen swarm organisms that had been collected for study. The cold didn't just stop them, Olivia explained. It disrupted their collective intelligence somehow. Look at these neural patterns. The chief Zarn-K scientist nodded. They function as individual cells in a larger brain. When frozen, the connections between them broke down, which means they're vulnerable when isolated. Olivia concluded. We need to find a way to disrupt their communication on a larger scale. Meanwhile, Zoe had made another discovery. She pulled Jason and Mason aside in a quiet corner of the station. I've been analyzing the swarm's attack patterns, she whispered. They're not random. They specifically target planets with high biodiversity. Like Deathworlders, Mason said, understanding dawning on his face. Exactly. And I found something else in the Concord records. Zoe's voice dropped even lower. The swarm first appeared shortly after the Zarnkay joined the Concord. Their home planet, Scarus Prime, was the first world attacked. Jason frowned. You think there's a connection? I don't know, but Earth would be a prime target if the swarm found it. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement. The High Council had called an emergency session. When they arrived at the council chamber, they found it less crowded than before. Many representatives had evacuated during the attack. Those who remained looked tired but determined. First Speaker Elam addressed the gathering. The Void Swarm's attack was repelled, thanks in part to our human visitors. He nodded toward Jason and his crew. This has led to a reconsideration of our position. General Kraz stepped forward. Indeed, I propose that we form a joint mission to investigate the swarm's origin, with humans. Murmurs of surprise spread through the chamber. Vexthor looked as shocked as Jason felt. This is unexpected, Vexthor said cautiously. The humans proved their worth in battle, Kraz replied smoothly. And their biology gives them unique insights. My ships are ready to depart as soon as modifications can be made to accommodate our new allies. Olivia leaned close to Jason. Something feels off. He was ready to destroy us yesterday. Jason nodded slightly. Agreed. Vexthor seemed to share their suspicion. I volunteer to lead this mission myself, he announced. My flagship is already being repaired. Kraz's expression hardened. Your flagship was nearly destroyed. My battle cruiser is untouched. Actually, Jason interrupted. We have a proposal. He stepped to the center of the chamber. The discovery may be small, but with Zarnkay weapons technology and our adaptive systems, it could be the perfect vessel for this mission. A joint crew, representing both Deathworld species. First Speaker Elam considered this a symbol of cooperation. I approve. As do I, Vexthor said quickly. Kraz couldn't object without revealing his true intentions. He forced a smile. Very well. But I insist that my most trusted officer join the crew. Captain Scarvex. Vexthor looked surprised. My sibling. To ensure the mission's success, Kraz said meaningfully. Later, as they prepared for the mission, Scarvex approached Jason privately. I should warn you, the Zarnkay captain said quietly. General Kraz has given me orders concerning you. Orders I do not agree with. What orders? Jason asked. To eliminate all humans once the swarm's origin is found, and to extract the coordinates of Earth from your ship's data. Scarvex's amber eyes met Jason's. But I have seen your kind in battle. You fight with honor. I will not betray that. Jason studied the alien captain. Why are you telling me this? Because something is wrong about this entire situation, Scarvex replied. The swarm, the sudden attacks. I believe we are all being manipulated, and I think you humans may be the key to understanding why. The Discovery traveled through the darkness of uncharted space. Its crew was a mix of humans and Zarnkay, working together despite their differences. Commander Vexthor joined as the mission leader, while Jason served as his second-in-command. The ship had been upgraded with Zarnkay weapons and shields, making it stronger than before. Approaching coordinates, Zoe announced from her station. This is where the swarm readings are strongest. Through the view screen, they saw a massive structure floating in space. It was clearly artificial, a giant metal sphere with countless small openings covering its surface. What is that? Vexthor wondered. Olivia studied her readings. It's ancient. The metal composition dates back at least 50,000 years. Captain Scarvex pointed to the openings. Those match the size of the swarm organisms perfectly. It's a hive, Jason realized. Or a factory. A signal suddenly activated on a frequency they hadn't detected before. Screens around the bridge lit up with a projection of a humanoid figure. It wasn't human or Zarnkay, but something else entirely, tall and slender with 4 arms and crystalline skin. "Greetings, children of evolution," the figure said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You have found the source, as was intended." "Who are you?" Vex Thor demanded. "I am the last architect. My people created what you call the Void Swarm long ago." Jason stepped forward. "Why? The swarm has destroyed entire worlds." "Yes, that was its purpose." The figure's crystal face showed no emotion. "To find and eliminate evolutionary threats." The crew exchanged confused looks. "Explain," Vex Thor growled. "My people feared the rise of species from harsh worlds, Deathworlders, as you call them. We believed such species would always become violent and destructive. So we created the swarm to seek out and sterilize worlds with conditions that might produce such life." "You've been killing innocent people," Mason exclaimed. "We considered it necessary. For millions of years, the swarm performed its function, until it found Scarus Prime." Scarvex tensed. "Our homeworld?" "Yes. The first Deathworld species intelligent enough to fight back effectively. The swarm adapted as designed. But something unexpected happened. Images appeared showing Zarn-K ships fighting the swarm. The Zarn-K did not simply destroy. They built. They formed alliances. They protected weaker species. This contradicted our assumptions. More images showed humans working with Zarn-K during the recent battle. And now you, humans from an even harsher world, risk your lives for others. Two Deathworld species working together. A final test was needed." "Test?" Jason asked, a chill running down his spine. "You've been testing us." "Yes, the recent attacks were controlled. I needed to see if true cooperation was possible between different Deathworld species. You have proven that it is." Vex Thor slammed his fist on a console. "You killed thousands just to test a theory. Billions have died over the millennia," the architect corrected calmly. "But the experiment is now complete. The swarm's purpose must be reconsidered." Olivia had been quietly analyzing the structure. "Jason," she whispered, "the entire station is powered by a quantum singularity. If it were to collapse..." Jason understood immediately. "You're saying we could destroy it?" She nodded. "But we'd need to get much closer." The architect continued, unaware of their conversation. "I will deactivate the swarm and reprogram it for a new purpose. Perhaps to protect Deathworld species rather than eliminate them." "And we're supposed to trust you?" Scarvex asked. "After what you've done?" "Trust is irrelevant. I simply state what will be." Jason exchanged glances with Vex Thor, who seemed to understand what needed to happen. The commander discreetly signaled his security team. "We need a distraction," Jason whispered to Mason. Mason nodded and suddenly fired his weapon at the projection. It flickered but remained. "Unfortunate," the architect said. "I detect hostile intent. Perhaps I was wrong about your species after all." Swarm organisms began pouring from the structure's openings. "Maximum thrust," Vex Thor ordered. "Get us closer to that station." The Discovery lurched forward as swarm organisms surrounded it. The shields began to fail. "Weapons ready," Scarvex reported. "Targeting the power core." "No," Olivia countered. "We need something stronger." She looked at Jason. "The warp drive. If we overload it next to the singularity." Jason nodded grimly. "It would create a reaction big enough to destroy the station. And us with it." "Not necessarily," Vex Thor said. "The escape pods might clear the blast radius." As the ship rocked from swarm impacts, Jason made his decision. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel. I'll stay to pilot us in and trigger the overload."